loss of sensory sensation or a sensory perception which is reversible. So there has to be a reversible loss of a sensory perception, and especially with sensation is the pain sensation. But what is the difference between general anesthetic and local anesthetic is that there is a loss of sensory perception only in a localized area, in a restricted area of our body. So local anesthetics are the drugs which will be applied topically or they will be injected locally, and that will lead to the reversible loss of a sensory perception, especially pain, and that will occur in a restricted area of our body. In general anesthetic, we have seen it occurs over the entire body. So that is a major difference. Another difference was there that general anesthetics were preventing a synaptic transmission of the impulses, right? Whereas this will block the generation of the impulse, or if it is given in a higher dose, it will block the conduction of the nerve impulse. So the synaptic transmissions here will not be interfered with a local anesthetic. It is a generation of an impulse and a conduction of the impulse which will be impaired because by the local anesthetic. In almost all parts of the neurons, wherever these will come in contact with the, wherever it will come in contact without causing any structural damage. It will not produce any damage to the this neurons. Now the next, that is, let us talk about what is the history of a local anesthetic. Now the very well-known local anesthetic which was known to people in ancient time was a cocaine. It was a naturally occurring compound and usually found in certain areas like West Indies and Java. It was the first anesthetic to be discovered, and it is the only naturally occurring local anesthetic available. Now, cocaine, because of its certain, adverse effects, because of which it was misused by people, it became a drug of abuse. But Kolar was the first to introduce cocaine in the field of ophthalmology. And then there was a Hall, Dr. Hall, who introduced it during the dentistry. And Halsted was the first to report the use of a cocaine to cause a nerve block. So in United States in 1885, it was introduced and some people were found to be addicted to this drug. And then it became a drug of abuse. Then came a drug called Procaine, which was a derivative of a cocaine and developed in 1898. After Procaine, there was a discovery of a lidocaine, which was widely used cocaine derivative, especially during World War II. Lot of in World War II, you must have observed through movies that a lot of this man loss was there, injuries were there, and to have a relief from the pain, the wounds which were there, they were having during the war, there was a lot of use of lidocaine which happened at that time. So now what is a local anesthetic? Local anesthetics are the drugs which block the transmission of the impulses along the nerves. That is very important. That is, conduction of the impulses are blocked. Not from one nerve to other, along the nerve. They usually have a very short or a medium duration of action, that is around 1 to 6 hours. And their main purpose of the use is to control a pain. And if they are used in a higher doses, it is always dangerous to the patient as they may act as a convulsogenic. They may induce convulsions. All the answers will get elucidated as I further go with my lecture. Right now, you just understand what are local anesthetic, how do they act. So what you understand from this slide is that local anesthetic block. What do they block? They block the transmission of impulse, conduction of the impulse along the nerve. And they have a very short duration of action of around 1 to 6 hours. And what is the main purpose of using local anesthetic is to control a pain rather than carrying out any surgical operations. For that, we will prefer a general anesthetic. But here, when you want to control a pain, we will go for a local anesthetic. And if they are used in overdoses, what is the danger or what is the toxicity related with them is that many of them have a convulsogenic effect. Now, how does that convulsogenic effect occurs? That I will explain you in my later part of the lecture. So they are usually local anesthetics are supposed to be applied near to the nerve ending or near to the major nerve trunk, which is innervating that particular organ which you want to anesthetize. So when you apply a local anesthetic near to that nerve or to the trunk, it will inhibit a generation of the action potential. Along with that, it may also block the propagation of the impulses, that is conduction of the impulses. And it will also prevent sometimes the conduction of the electric impulses from the CNS to the periphery also, or sometimes from the periphery to the CNS. They usually cause a transient loss of a sensory, motor, and autonomic functions in discrete proportion of the body without causing any loss of a consciousness. Unconsciousness will not be there associated with a local anesthetic, but there will be a loss of sensation. There may be sometimes a motor neuronal blockade may be there, and some of the autonomic functions may also get blocked with local anesthetic, but reticular activating system, which maintains our alertness, will not be blocked by the local anesthetic. Here are some of the structure of the well-known local anesthetics are displayed in front of you. The one is a mepivacaine, another is a procaine, then is a tetracaine, and another is a lidocaine. Just observe them carefully, and do you find any difference in their structure? If you look at a mepivacaine, you can see there is a C double bond O NH functional group. Whereas in procaine, you can see C double bond O CH2 functional group is there. So you can see that local anesthetic majorly have a two structure. One is a amide structure and another is a ester structure. And you can see that repetition is there. In tetracaine, you can see ester structure. In lidocaine, you can see there is a amide structure. So you can say that if you classify local anesthetic structurally, they can be classified into two classes. So one, ester, and another, that is a amide. So in ester, there will be a procaine, cocaine, and tetracaine. Cocaine is not in use, or it is a restricted use. But procaine, tetracaine are available. Amides, the example are lidocaine and bupivacaine, where you have already studied lidocaine number of times when you must have studied a chapter called as treatment for cardiac arrhythmia. Now, this is a classification important from a pharmacological point of view, depending upon whether the potency of a local anesthetic is low, intermediate, or high, whether the duration of action is shorter, medium, or longer. So on the basis of that, you can have three classes of a local anesthetic. In that, first will be the injectable anesthetic, where you can have again subclasses, low potency and short duration, which includes procaine and chloroprocaine. Then again, injectable anesthetic, but having intermediate potency and intermediate duration of the action, which includes lidocaine and prilocaine. And there are injectable anesthetic which are with a high potency. At the same time, they have a longer duration of the action, which include tetracaine, bupivacaine, ropivacaine, and dibucaine, which is also termed as a syncocaine. Then we have certain surface anesthetic, which are not required to be given by the parenteral route, but they can be just applied topically. They can be given as a surface infiltration sometimes. So these are the surface anesthetic, which can be of two categories, soluble and insoluble. Soluble include cocaine, lidocaine, tetracaine, and benoxynate. And insoluble include benzocaine, butyl amino benzoate, and oxythiazide. So you have to remember this classification for question number 1, where sometimes the question may arise as name any surface anesthetic which is soluble in nature, or name any injectable anesthetic with having intermediate duration of the action, or sometimes the question may arise as lidocaine has dash potency and dash duration. So intermediate potency and intermediate duration of action, and that's why you have to remember this drugs. So this is all we have already studied, that what are the different classes of a local anesthetic. Now we are going again back to the chemical classification of a local anesthetic, where I have told you that there are two major classes, that is esters and amides, and in that further you will see there are subclasses depending upon the structure, that we can have esters of a benzoic acid, or we have a second class, that is esters of a para-amino benzoic acid, where procaine and chlorprocaine fall in those categories, whereas butacane, cocaine, benzocaine, piperacane and tetracane, all of them fall under the category of simple esters of a benzoic acid. In amides also we have a simple amide, so we can have a quinoline. Quinoline we have only one drug, that is a bucridine. And amides we have list of the drugs including articaine, bupivacaine, dibucaine, etidocaine, and a very important drug, that is a lidocaine. So this, I have explained you all types of classification, the chemical classification as well as a pharmacological classification. If the question comes that classify local anesthetic, you are expected to give both the classifications. Obviously, your first answer will be pharmacological classification when you are solving pharmacology paper, and chemical classification you can just provide, as a supplementary classification along with that. If they say that classify local anesthetic on the basis of their duration of action, okay, only restrict your answer to the classification on the basis of duration of action. There you need not give a chemical classification. But when a question arises as general classification, classify local anesthetic, you are required to give both the types of the classification. Moving ahead, all local anesthetic linking. As I have already shown you the structure, where you can see that there was an intermediate chain which is linking an amine is there on the one end, and there is an aromatic ring present on the other end. Now, why do you need a presence of an amine end? That is because it imparts a hydrophilicity to the structure. And why do you need aromaticity in the structure? Because that imparts a lipophilicity to the structure. So what you understand from this is that by changing the types of the amines, or by changing the types of aromatic substitution, you can change the chemical activity of the drug. You can change the lipophilicity and hydrophilicity of a molecule. Now, why do we need a hydrophilicity and a lipophilicity of the molecule? You need to understand that our drug will be either applied topically or it will be given by the parenteral route. Imagine a situation where your drug is given by a parenteral route. The drug is going to enter into a circulation containing 95% or more than that amount of the water in that. So what is important is that your drug needs to be dissolved into the circulation, because that is only the transporter which will take it towards the neurons. But when your drug comes in a vicinity of the neuron, you see that it becomes, the layer becomes more lipoidal. And being a more lipoidal, now your drug, if it has to traverse across the neuron, needs some lipophilicity. So what is important for your local anesthetic to exert the action is that it should have a balanced amount of lipophilicity and hydrophilicity to move from a circulation into the neurons. So you cannot have 100% lipophilicity and 100% hydrophilicity in the structure of a local anesthetic. Such local anesthetic will fail to produce its effect. It should be partly hydrophilic and partly lipophilic. That partly hydrophilicity is imparted by the amine substitution, and a part lipophilicity is imparted to it by the aromatic group substitutions. So when we learn local anesthetic, have amino amides and amino esters. Amino functional group is required to impart hydrophilicity, and aromaticity should be there for a lipophilicity, and a linkage can be either amide or a linkage can be either ester linkage. So we can have either amino amides or we can have amino esters. Now, when we talk about amino amides, they have an amide link between the intermediate chain and aromatic end, and amino esters, they have an ester link between the intermediate chain and a aromatic end. Amino esters and amino amides, they differ from each other in several aspects. Now, when there are amino esters, they will usually get metabolized within the plasma, which we already learned that there is a pseudocholine esterase enzyme, esterase, which will hydrolyze esters. And amino esters will have ester when they are moving into the circulation. There is going to be the presence of pseudocholine esterase, and it is going to metabolize our drug if it has a structure of amino esters. Whereas amino amides, we don't have amidase enzyme in the circulation, but amino amidase or amidase enzymes are going to be present in the liver. So amino amides will not get metabolized in circulation, but they will usually get metabolized in a liver. Please remember this. Amino esters are usually unstable solution. So maybe you are required to form in situ formation of the solution is required. You have to make a solution as and when only required. You cannot have the amino esters in a solution form already. Whereas if you look at the stability of the amino amides, they are more stable and they can form a stable solution. So not necessary they are required to be put into the solution when required or when they have to be administered. Amino esters are more likely than amino amides to cause allergic reaction. Amount of the allergic reactions reported with amino esters are more than those which are reported with the amides. So step by step, you are learning the answer for a question that differentiate between amino amides and amino esters. I hope the answer is clear in your mind. The first point is that the linkage is different. The second point is that the type of metabolism they will undergo is different. Third, the site at which the metabolism will take place is different. The fourth, the stability differs. And the fifth, that is their potential for allergic reaction also differs. Esters have a more potential to create allergic reactions than that of amides. Most of the drug enter into the circulation to obviously achieve their therapeutic concentration before they exert their clinical action. Local anesthetic, on the other hand, they cease to provide any clinical effect once they leave the site of administration and enter into the bloodstream. So this is a unique property of a local anesthetic. Now we are coming to a very important part of the chapter, and that is how do local anesthetic exert their effect. This is a diagram I have taken from a book, Tripathi. And after this lecture, you can refer to this chapter so that the mechanism will be more clear in your mind. Local anesthetics are usually present initially in their unionized form. Now, these local anesthetic in the diagram, if you see, they are entering into, this is a receptor site, binding site of a local anesthetic. And what are these things? These are nothing but they are the sodium ion channel. You can see this is a sodium ion channel which is in a resting state, and being in a resting state, it will not allow a sodium to move inside. Now, if a local anesthetic has to bind to its binding site, it has to come from the intracellular domain. It is not possible for a local anesthetic to come from an extracellular domain and bind to its binding site. It has to come from an intracellular domain. And if it has to come from an intracellular domain, the local anesthetic has to penetrate through this neuronal wall and will come inside exoplasm and will then be able to bind to its binding site. So that is very important. Now, if local anesthetic has to pass through this neuronal membrane, we know that the neuronal membrane will have a myelin sheath. It will be highly lipoidal in the nature, and therefore it is an aromatic portion of a local anesthetic which will impart a lipophilic, ionized and a lipophilic form of a local anesthetic, which will be able to move across the neuronal wall and will enter into the exoplasm. After it has entered into the exoplasm, you can see over here that outside into the circulation, some portion of a local anesthetic is present in ionized form, some is present in the unionized form. Ionized form is not entering. It is an unionized form of a drug which is traversing across the neuronal membrane and is entering into the exoplasm. And after it has entered into the exoplasm, because of the change in the pH, now this unionized form will undergo a reionization and will get converted to a cationic form. And this is a cationic form which will have an affinity to its binding site from intracellular domain. It will go and now bind to its binding site. And now here you can see that when local anesthetic is binding to its binding site, when it binds to a binding site, you can see here over here that the ion channel moves into the inactivated state. And when the local anesthetic is binding to its binding site, it keeps the ion or stabilizes the ion channel in its inactivated. And because it stabilizes the ion channel in an inactivated state, now the ion channel is not able to come back to a resting state. You can see that it gets stabilized in the inactivated state. So as long as our local anesthetic remains bound to the binding site, the channel will remain in an inactivated state. Sodium channel will remain in an inactivated state and will fail to come into the resting stage. Now, if the ion channel fails to come into the resting stage, it will even fail to come to the activated state. So indirectly, what is a local anesthetic is doing by prolonging its duration of an inactivated state is not allowing the ion channel to come to the resting and then to the activated, and therefore restricting the entry of the sodium ion across the neuron. Now, if there is a restriction of the sodium ion across the neuron for a longer time, depolarization will not take place. Generation of the action potential will be inhibited. Not only that, but conduction of the action potential across the neuronal membrane or across the neuronal length will also be prevented, will be also blocked. Another important thing which you have to remember over here is that you can see that local anesthetic enters, right? Here you can see it has the ion channel is initially in the resting stage, and then it is moving into an activated state. And when it is moving into an activated state, the sodium is entering inside. At that time, only our local anesthetic is going and binding to its binding site. So what you need to understand is that local anesthetic will be able to bind to sodium ion channel only when sodium ion channel is in an activated state, means the local anesthetic is going to produce its effect in rapidly firing neurons. Because those neurons which are rapidly firing the impulses, in those neurons only chances of having the sodium channel open is more. And the activated state of the ion channel enhances the binding of a local anesthetic to its binding site. So when there is a pain sensation, at that time there is going to be a rapid firing of the impulses. When pain is present, rapid firing of the impulses, rapid firing opening of the sodium ion channel is there. So affinity of a binding site of local anesthetic to our agent is more. So more and more binding of local anesthetic is going to take place in the activated state of a sodium channel. And once the local anesthetic is bound to its binding site, the ion channel will be inactivated and will be stabilized in an inactivated state for a longer time, as long as our local anesthetic is bound to the binding site. It will not allow it to move to the resting stage. And because it is not allowing to commit to the resting stage, it will not move to the activated state. And it is not moving to the activated state, the entry of the sodium will be restricted. Entry of the sodium is restricted. Depolarization is restricted. Depolarization is restricted. Generation of action potential is blocked, as well as conduction of the action potential is blocked. I repeat, local anesthetic bind avidly to their binding site when there is a rapid firing of the impulses, means there is a rapid opening of the sodium ion channel. But once it is bound to its binding site, the ion channel gets transformed into the inactivated state and remains in an inactivated state as long as local anesthetic remains bound to its binding site. And once the inactivated duration of the channel is prolonged, its transition to the resting stage is delayed, and then to its transition to the activated state is also delayed, because of which the generation of the action potential and conduction of the action potential is also reduced. I hope you have understood mechanism of action of local anesthetic. If the question arises, what is important, what is a key point important in the mechanism of action, is that local anesthetic blocks sodium ion channel in activated state, and then they don't allow it to come to the resting state immediately. So they prolong the duration of a inactivated state of a sodium ion channel. So they act by blockade of the sodium channel. Now when the sodium ion channel is blocked, the threshold for excitation increases. What is the meaning? See, unless and until a threshold value of a membrane potential is not reached, depolarization will not be initiated. But now, since you have understood mechanism of action, what we understood is that the ion channel is remaining in the inactivated state for a longer time. So entry of the sodium is blocked. Positively charged ion is not moving inside the neuronal membrane. So even the membrane potential will not shift to the positive side. So the time taken by the membrane potential to reach to the threshold potential will be increased. So threshold for the excitation will increase. Not only that, but the conduction of the impulses will slower down. The rate of rise of the action potential will also slower down, will decline. And what is the resultant effect? That ability of a neuron to generate the impulse or action potential will be abolished or will be completely cancelled. So when the influx of the sodium gets interrupted and action potential cannot arise, the conduction of the signal is inhibited. Local anesthetic bind readily to the sodium ion channels which are present in an activated state, and they turn the onset of a neuronal blockade faster in the neurons which are rapidly firing. And this is something is referred as a state-dependent block. State-dependent block is in which state the sodium ion channel is present will decide whether the action will be rapid or action will be delayed. Now, if there are rapidly firing impulses are there, a rapid opening of the sodium channel is there, obviously the local anesthetic is going to produce effect much faster on those rapidly firing impulse neurons rather than on the neurons which are firing the impulses slowly. And such type of the blockade is termed as a state-dependent blockade. So question may sometimes come that explain the state-dependent blockade produced by local anesthetic. Now we're going to the next important part of and what is the effect of the pH. I have shown you the structure of the local anesthetic, and what was important structural feature of a local anesthetic was amine, presence of the amines. So that makes the local anesthetic weakly basic in the nature. They are usually formulated as a hydrochloride salts to make them water soluble because they are weakly basic and they have amines in their structure. At the chemical pK, usually you know that the proportion of ionized and unionized, that is protonated and unprotonated form of the molecule always exists in the equilibrium. It's only unprotonated molecule which is in a non-ionized form and will be able to diffuse across the cell membrane. So once your molecule is inside the cell, then local anesthetics will be in the equilibrium. Due to the formation of a protonated, that is ionized form, which was in cationic form is formed, which usually does not will be able to come out of a neuronal membrane. So it will remain trapped inside a neuronal membrane. And this phenomena will restrict the local anesthetic across its site of action. It will not lead to the back diffusion of a local anesthetic. And that phenomena is termed as a ion trapping. This is because of the change in the pH from circulation inside the exoplasm. Inside the exoplasm, the pH will change, which will make our local anesthetic more in an ionized form, and being in ionized form, it will not diffuse back again through the neuronal membrane into the circulation or the extracellular environment. It will remain trapped within the neuronal cell, and that is termed as a ion trapping. Another important property of the effect of the pH is that local anesthetics are weakly basic, and we can see that their activity will increase with increase in the pH. We have learned in general pharmacology that basic drug, weakly basic drugs will remain in the unionized form at alkaline pH. So as there is an increased pH, more and more local anesthetic will be present in unionized form, and because of that, rate of diffusion of a local anesthetic across the neuronal membrane will increase, because large amount of the drug will be in unpolar. It will facilitate its penetration through the cell membrane, and what will happen once the drug has penetrated the lipid barrier, it will reach to its site of action, and once it reaches to the site of action, the pH is changing, it is becoming ionized, so back diffusion is not possible, and there is an ionized form of the the drug, which will go and bind to its binding site and will produce all the changes. That is, it will convert, it will stabilize the ion channel in inactivated state and will start producing its effect of blocking the sodium ion channel. So the increase in the pH will always favor the transfers of the drug across the neuronal membrane. And once it is rapidly moving through the neuronal membrane, remains trapped, will lose its effect. That is what you need to understand. There is going to be some effect of inflammation also. Now, whenever there is an inflammation, we all know that usually a hypoxic condition is created across the inflammatory regions. There can be acidosis, which is caused usually by the inflammation at a wound, and that will reduce the action of a local anesthetic. This is because when a pH is shifting to the acidic site at a site of inflammation and near the wound, even your drug is going to, being a weakly basic in the nature, is going to get converted more into the ionized form, and that will limit its crossing across the neuronal membrane and reaching to the cytoplasmic facing site of action on the sodium channel. So you have to be very careful that when you are injecting the anesthetic drugs or a local anesthetic drug, you should not inject that drug at a site of the inflammation or at the site of the wound, because that is not going to enhance the rate of penetration. The onset time of a blockade is related primarily, means at what time your local anesthetic will produce sodium ion channel will depend upon the PK value of local anesthetic. And obviously now you can correlate to it, because it is the amount of the drug reaching to your nerve and ultimately reaching to the exoplasm will determine that how much amount of the ionized form of local anesthetic will be available to bind to its binding site. So those drugs which have a low PK value around 7.6 to 7.8, like lignocaine or mepivacaine, they usually are fast acting, because about 30 to 40% of these local anesthetic are present in undissociated form at a pH 7.4, which is a pH of a circulation, which will bring our local anesthetic towards the neuron. And it is this form which will penetrate into the axon. Whereas if you look at those other drugs like procaine or a tetracaine or a bupivacaine, which have a higher PK value of 8.1 to 8.9 at a blood pH of 7.4, you will find only 15% of the drug is going to be present in ionized form. So you can say that 50% of those which are having a lower PK value is only available. Those which have a lower PK value, 30% drug is in ionized. Those which are having higher PK value, only 15% of the drug is available. And therefore, those which are having a higher PK value will be slowly acting, whereas those which are having a lower PK value will be acting fast, immediately will be acting. The only exception which you have to remember in that situation is a chloroprocaine, which is an exception, which even though it has a high PK value, it has a very high PK value, but it produces a rapid onset of action. Now we are coming to another next important part of the chapter, and that is what is differential block produced by local anesthetic. Local anesthetic usually produce their block depending upon, it is a state dependent, no, which I explained you. It depends upon whether your sodium ion channel is present in a resting state, is present in inactivated state, or present in an active state. And we have seen that local anesthetic usually have an affinity to those sodium ion channels which are present in an active state. They have affinity to sodium ion channels which are rapidly firing neurons, which are always going to be in an active state. So it is a small myelinated axon usually cause which carry our nociceptive impulses. Nociceptive impulses are our pain impulses, which are usually carried by our small myelinated axons. So in those, whenever there is a pain, these small myelinated are going to be activated, and their sodium channels are going to be present in an active stage. So local anesthetics are going to first act on this small myelinated axons. Then they will act on the non-myelinated axons, and then they will act on a large myelinated axon. So this is going to be their, way of action, or this is going to be the way they will be blocking the different types of neurons. And therefore, there is going to be a differential block. First, the small myelinated neurons will get blocked. Then the non-myelinated axons will get blocked. And then the long myelinated axons will get blocked. So there is going to be a differential block. That is, pain sensation is blocked more readily rather than the other sensory modalities. So it will be the first sensation which will be blocked by the local anesthetic will be a pain sensation. And then the other sensations which will be blocked by the local anesthetics. So this type of a block is termed as a differential block. Now we are talking about the uptake of a local anesthetic. All local anesthetic, they possess some degree of a vasoactivity. And you can see that they have some degree of a vasodilation. Especially when you talk about Easter local anesthetic, they are a very good vasodilating agent. Even the procaine possesses tremendous vasodilating ability. And it can even be employed for the treatment of the arteriovasospasm, where there is a arterial vasoconstriction which takes place, which can damage our vital organs to which that artery is supplying the blood. So in the accidental purpose, you can even sometimes give procaine by intra-arterial route and can induce a vasodilation in that area. The cocaine is the only local anesthetic that produces consistent, it produces initially a vasoconstriction, produces vasoconstriction, and then there will be initial vasodilation. There will be intense vasoconstriction. So you have to remember cocaine for this effect. Otherwise, all other type of local anesthetic, they have a very good vasodilating effect. Now, why we are talking about this vasodilating effect? Because vasodilation will always increase the rate of absorption of a local anesthetic into a blood. Not only that, but they will decrease the duration and the depth of the pain control while increasing the anesthetic blood concentration and potential for a overdose. That is very important. When you know that your drug has a very good vasodilating action, that means it is going to come into the circulation very quickly. And when it is going to come into the circulation very quickly, there is a likeliness that as in the, I don't know how many of you remember, in the beginning, I have told you that anesthetics cause loss of sensation of the pain, but in overdoses, they cause convulsions. So when your drug is going to get absorbed very rapidly and when its concentration is going to get achieved into the circulation very rapidly, there are always chances that overdosing may take place. And if the overdosing takes place, you are subjecting the patient to the toxic reactions. So when you are subjecting the patient to a toxic reaction because of the vasodilatory property of a local anesthetic, you have to take some secondary measure. You have to take some precautious measures to avoid this. And what can be done in such situation is that you can add some vasoconstrictor along with your local anesthetic. Like suppose procaine, we know that it has a very good vasodilatory activity. Okay, fine, the drug will reach into the circulation very quickly, but the amount of the drug reaching to the circulation is going to be high, and that may increase the risk of the convulsions. When you are already aware as a pharmacologist, what you have to suggest is that you have to give such type of the drug along with certain vasoconstrictor, and a very good vasoconstrictor is adrenaline. So these are the combinations which are usually given, that is 1:50,000 or 1:20,000, because when you are with a vasoconstrictor, the vasoconstrictor will contract the blood vessel, as a result of which the rate of delivery of a local anesthetic to the site of the action, to the local site, will be reduced. So it will prolong the duration of action of a local anesthetic by decreasing the rate of the removal also from the local site into the circulation. It will enhance the intensity of a nerve block, sustained release. It will reduce even the systemic toxicity, because at one time there is not the entire amount of the drug which is going to the circulation. So rate of the absorption is reduced. As amount of the drug available is in a sustained manner, not all entire drug is not available at in a circulation. As a result of which, what will happen? The rate of the metabolism will also get reduced. And as a rate of metabolism gets reduced, there will be a action. It will make the injection more painful, no doubt. That's going to be the drawback, because you have to even give adrenaline and there is going to be a vasoconstriction. So injection is going to be painful. Because there is a vasoconstriction, if you have to perform a surgery in presence of local anesthetic, loss of the blood will be prevented, because you're already giving a vasoconstrictor. So you will get a bloodless field. This is very useful when there are facial surgeries are required to be carried out. You need a bloodless field over there. So bloodless field for the surgery is available. That's the advantage. Another disadvantage is that it will increase the chances of a subsequent local tissue edema and necrosis, and it will delay the wound healing, because for wound healing you need a blood and oxygen, because it will reduce the oxygen supply when you are restricting the blood supply. It will enhance the oxygen consumption in the affected area. Because you are giving adrenaline, it will rise the blood pressure also. And because there is a rise in the blood pressure, it will promote arrhythmia in only those patients who are susceptible to or who are sensitive to those changes of rise in the blood pressure, or those who are at a cardiac risk. In such patient, combination of the adrenaline with local anesthetic, you have to take care. But otherwise, the combination of adrenaline with local anesthetic will avoid the toxicity of a local anesthetic, will control the rate of the delivery of a local anesthetic to the site of the action, will enhance the duration of the action, will decrease the rate of the metabolism, will prolong the duration of action, and will reduce the toxicities like the convulsion. No doubt there are going to be certain side effects, like if there is an injury, the wound healing will not take place rapidly, oxygen supply will be restricted, cardiac patients will be at a risk. But apart from that, in a normal patient who is not at cardiac risk, or there is no any wound present, in that situation, the combination of adrenaline with local anesthetic will work to give a prolonged anesthesia. The local anesthetic afford adequate pain control when they are given in an inflamed tissue. Already I have explained to you, because there is acidic pH and your drug will be morely present in a ionized form. And when it is in ionized form, its entry across the nerve will be reduced. Because inflammation lowers the pH, thus greater fraction is present in ionized form, which hinders the diffusion in the axolemma. And blood flow to the inflamed area also is increased, because of which local anesthetic gets rapidly removed from its site of the action. And if in such situation, if you give adrenaline, it will reduce, local anesthetic is reduced at a inflamed site. The inflammatory products are cytokines, which will also oppose the action of a local anesthetic. And therefore, local anesthetic usually are not recommended to be given at a site of the inflammation. Now we are coming to the next important part of the chapter, and that is the distribution of a local anesthetic. How do local anesthetic get distributed in the body? Once they come into the blood tissue, they will get distributed to all vital organs, which are highly perfused, like our brain, liver, head, lungs, kidney, and spleen. Later on, they will get distributed into moderately perfused tissues like skeletal muscle, which has the highest level because it has the largest mass of the tissue, and aromaticity of the molecule which is present in local anesthetic will help it to penetrate into those tissues. The amount of the drug which is going to reach, or local anesthetic which is going to reach into the blood circulation, will be restricted or will be influenced by the rate at which your local anesthetic is going to get absorbed into cardiovascular system, the rate at which is going to get distributed from the vascular compartment into the tissue, and a final third factor, the rate at which your local anesthetic is going to get eliminated, either through the metabolic pathway or through the excretory pathway. So rate at which your drug is absorbed depends upon the pH as well as on the PK value. The rate at which it gets distributed depends upon the lipophilicity of the molecule. And the rate at which it will get eliminated by metabolism or through the excretory pathway is also again determined by the degree of the ionization of your drug. So it's ultimate value which are going to determine that how quickly your local anesthetic is going to produce the effect and how long it is going to produce the effect, which you can calculate depending upon the half-life of the drug. We generally know that by the 4 half-lives, 94% of the drug gets excreted. So you can determine what is going to be the frequency of administration of a local anesthetic by knowing the half-life of a drug. All local anesthetics, because they have aromatic nature and they have a lipid solubility, they are going to cross the blood-brain barrier. All of them are going to cross placental barrier, are going to enter into the developing fetus, and therefore they will be contraindicated in the pregnant ladies. As we have seen the chemical classification, we have seen that most of the local anesthetics have a para-aminobenzoic acid structure. So the esters of the local anesthetic, they will get hydrolyzed by pseudocholinesterase enzyme, and that rate of the hydrolysis will be proportional to the degree of a toxicity. greater the hydrolysis, less will be the degree of the toxicity. The tetracrine is going to get hydrolyzed at a slowest. And therefore, this is a drug which is going to be 16 times more toxic than that of a chloroprocaine. Chloroprocaine is a drug which is going to get hydrolyzed at a fastest. So these are the two extremities. The tetracrine which gets hydrolyzed very slowly, and a chloroprocaine which gets hydrolyzed very rapidly. But as a student or a pharmacology student, what you have to remember is that those local anesthetic which undergo slow hydrolysis have a high degree of a toxicity. In case of amide local anesthetic, the metabolism is not going to occur into the circulation. The metabolism is going to occur in liver. And examples of such drugs are lidocaine, mepivacaine, articaine, bupivacaine, and etidocaine. Even the prelocaine gets metabolized not only in the liver, but some of its part gets metabolized in lungs. So here, what is important? The liver function, the degree of the blood perfusion to the liver will affect the rate of the metabolism of amide local anesthetic. If the liver dysfunctioning is there, which you can make out from the SGPT and SGOT level, then obviously such type of the local anesthetics are contraindicated because they are not going to get metabolized properly, and therefore their concentration is going to get increased and propensity or a probability of having the toxic reactions are going to be high. Articaine has a short half-life than all other amides because a part of its metabolism occurs in the blood by the plasma cholinesterase and part of it gets hydrolyzed by amidase in the liver. So this is the only exception which you have to remember. Amide local anesthetic, it has a very short half-life. Otherwise, all amide local anesthetic comparative to ester anesthetic, they have a longer half-life. Metabolism byproducts of sometimes some amide local anesthetic also possess the local anesthetic activity. They also has a clinical activity if they are allowed to accumulate into the blood. All local anesthetic, they have an ability, amide local anesthetic as well as ester, they have an ability to produce sedation. If you give a large doses of a prelocaine, they can produce the side effect like methemoglobinemia or orthotolidine, a primary metabolite of a prelocaine, which induces the formation of methemoglobin, which is where the iron is present in a where it is present already in a oxidized form. Actually, the iron is required to be present in a reduced form to combine to the oxygen. So when there is a methemoglobinemia, its oxygen carrying capacity decreases. Even lidocaine produces a sedation, which is due to its two metabolites, like one is a glycine xylidide and another is a monoethyl glycine xylidide. So lidocaine will produce more sedative effect. Its inherent property as well as its metabolites also have a sedative property. Interesting which I wanted to share with you. It is nothing to do with the pharmacology, but how will you come to know that which anesthetic is a amide and which is a ester anesthetic? This is useful for GPAT people. Now, how will you come to know that which anesthetic is a ester and which is a amide anesthetic? There is a trick for here. If you find there is a presence of 2I in its name, then it is amide. Like lidocaine, you can see that there is a 2I. Prelocaine, you can see there are 2I. Bupivacaine, 2I. Articaine, there are 2I. Mepivacaine, there are 2I. So all of them are amide, remaining are esters. That is how you can remember. So coming back to a point of metabolism, esters will majorly get metabolized in plasma and amides will get majorly metabolized into liver. The drug, whether contraindication is whether carefully you have to weigh the ratio between the risk and the benefit, which is a relative contraindication. And absolute contraindication is that under no circumstances, the concentration of local anesthetic in the circulation should increase to that level, which will induce the toxicity like convulsions. The next, after the metabolism comes the excretion. Where do the local anesthetic go excreted? Kidney is obviously a major organ for excretion of those anesthetic which are applied locally. Esters, they appear in a very less concentration because they get metabolized within a plasma. And this is because they are completely hydrolyzed in the plasma. Procaine appears, is the only exception of the ester local anesthetic, which appears in around 90% as PABA, para-aminobenzoic acid, and 2% as unchanged form. And cocaine can also be detected from the urine, as 10% of the cocaine is found unchanged in the urine. The patients who undergo dialysis or kidney failure patients are likely to unable to excrete the unchanged portion of the ester or the amide form of a local anesthetic, and that may increase the toxicity. So those who are on the dialysis should be given local anesthetic very carefully, or if they are given, TDM is required. Therapeutic drug monitoring is required to monitor the doses of a local anesthetic in the circulation.